Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, what do we know about the night of the unalivings there in Moscow, Idaho? Do we know exactly what way the killer went or what? This video that I put together with timestamps should get to the bottom of that.
Tonight, which is very simply, what does that crime scene look like now? We haven't been there in a while. So joining us, Court TV producer Cody Thomas is with us. Cody, you're out there in Moscow, and that question from me is, crime scene look like now?
Well, Vinny, of course, you can kind of see behind me, the house is no longer, but it's no longer here. And like you mentioned, it was demolished. There was some emotion surrounding that demolition because some of the parents felt that it was a critical piece of evidence. The university officials felt like it was the first step of healing. But regardless of that, I did take a look around the perimeter, making sense of what's left here of the property and also making sense of what could have happened the night that Bryan Kohberger allegedly went inside that property. Take a look. We are here at that King Road location where Ethan Jake, Maddie Moen, Sam Knodel, and Kayla Gonzalez tragically lost their lives in November of 2022. And as you look behind me here, I'll step out of the frame a little bit. You see that house is no longer here. They demolished it in December of 2023. There's still, though, memorials left out here, some stuffed animals, flowers. Really cares for these students, but regardless of this land of what is still here and what investigators have to go on as far as pinpointing where and how alleged suspect Bryan Kohberger got into the house in that early morning hour of November 13th, 2022. Of course, this is the space where the home would have been, in between these private residences and over to the left, these apartment buildings. Now, people who lived in this apartment building back then said it used to be pitch black all throughout this parking lot. As you can see, there's no street lights anywhere, but soon after those murders, this light bulb right here, people who lived at the residence say this light bulb was replaced to give it a little more illumination around this area. And of course, they still have it roped off. Not too long ago, all of this was sealed off by crime tape. And here's some of those memorials I was talking about. As you can see, flowers, and put a little bit more in focus here, some candles. Obviously, these girls and Ethan were very much so cared for by the community. And you can see this fence going up the right of where the property. All of that is, of course, private property. We can't go up there. And likely that Bryan Kohberger could not have gone up there either if he did commit these crimes. But we want to take you up this hill right here to this back parking lot to where his car, that white Elantra that's reported on in the court documents, may have been parked that night. So as we stand here on this side hill, this side road that would have gone up the left side of that property, we can see that it's not really easily accessible by foot. I'll zoom in. Given the fact there's a pretty big drop off right here, it looks to be maybe 3 or 4 feet. You know, you could easily hurt yourself and get injured if you're trying to come off of that. And there are also these rusted, looks as if to be what used to be fence posts. Maybe there used to be a fence here to kind of, you know, keep it separated from this building that is over here behind me. But again, you can see not that accessible, at least by foot, definitely not by car on this side. Also, as we stand here, you can tell that it's not that busy of a road. There's not a single car that's come by for the minutes I've been here so far. But at one point when the house was here, outside of these trees, it did provide a pretty clear look into the side windows of some of those bedrooms of the house, and even a peek into the kitchen on the second floor where the crimes allegedly happened. Up here is the back parking lot to those apartments. And as I pan to the left, You can see that it also leads right to where the back of the King Road house where the victims lived at the time. Now, of course, the leaves are a little grown up now, but in November when it was a little cold, the leaves are off the trees, provided a clear view right into the back windows of some of those bedrooms and a super clear view of the kitchen, those glass sliding doors leading to the second floor that could have provided access inside the house. Remember that police reported there was no signs of forced entry into the home once they arrived. And they also believe that this back lot could have been where the alleged suspect, Brian Koberger, parked his car and scoped out the scene that night of November 12th in.
Now, do we really know whether or not Brian could have parked his car back there? I mean, there's no evidence stating that he could have parked his car back there to watch the house.
To November 13th, when the crimes happened. Again, this is the back lot right behind where that house used to sit. And of course, Vinny, as far as the prosecution and the defense in this case, they have made it clear that they got everything they needed evidence-wise from this house before it was taken down.
Yeah, I still believe it's a mistake. The people who need to go in that house are the people who are going to decide the case, the jury. Now they're going to get pictures. They may get some renderings, but they won't be able to actually walk through it to get a better idea. So I disagree with it, but they're the experts in Idaho. That's the way they do it. When you went up to that top area, to me, it's always been about that area because from there's the darkness, there's the cover. It's a lot that no one's really going to be going to necessarily, and it's a way to make your way to that house without drawing much attention.
That's is to the left of where the property used to sit. There was that drop off that I talked about, but when you got to the back, it was a much easier slope. If someone were to try to sneak down there, you probably, of course, it led right up to those back glass doors. So it could be a possible entry point where he could have been. We'll have to wait till the details come out in trial, of course.
Right, and I think you were 100% on with the sliding doors. We know that they were dusting them for prints and the windows down there as well. But it's a safe place. Moscow was always a safe place. There was no reason that you would have to lock yours in Moscow. But all right, Cody.
And
Tom.
in fact, Vinny, there are some students out here. It was pretty bustling. They're moving around. I'm sure it's August, so school's starting back. And like to your point, that it's pretty safe. They're out here throwing frisbee, playing intramural sports. So this is probably a one-off situation here in Moscow.
All right, Cody's going to stay with us. Coming up, how was the accused trapped in his apartment? Take a look at, which is how was Brian Koberger, the accused, from his apartment? How did that go? Court TV producer Cody Thomas is still with us, and also joining us now, private investigator with over 20 years of experience, criminologist and profiler Jason Jensen. Cody, let me go to you first. You are there, and you were taking a ride, and you noticed some things. What did you find out today?
Well, we need to directly answer that question about how it was tracked. We know it was a combination between those cell phone pings on the showers and surveillance footage of that white Elantra going to and from his apartment. But I took that drive from his apartment in Pullman here to the crime scene in Moscow, Idaho. Here's a look at what that would have looked like. So right now, I'm on the Washington State University. More specifically, I'm at the complex where Brian Koberger lived right here behind me. The time Idaho student murders. Now, this is the location from where he drove to the King Road house in Moscow, Idaho, just a few minutes across the Idaho state line. I have the location queued up into GPS. I want to take you guys on the drive, what it would have looked like for Brian Koberger to take that night. The GPS says it's only about 18 minutes away, so not too far of a drive. And of course, right now it's just after 8 o'clock here in Pullman, Washington. And we do know that Brian Koberger left this location around 2:53 a.m. So, of course, it would have been much darker, but at least while we still have a little bit of light outside, I want you guys to see what the drive would have looked like for him as we go from here to Idaho, the University of Idaho, to that King Road house location. So right now, we're going to take a little trip. We're beginning that drive that Brian Koberger would have made that night of November 12th, going into the morning of November 13th on the way to Moscow, Idaho. Again, we're here in Washington State's campus, leaving Brian Koberger's apartment complex. Now, one of the first things I am noticing is that I don't see, or at least readily see, any security cameras that are clearly in sight. But we do know that according to the probable cause affidavit, that at least 5 cameras on WSU's campus and around the campus caught Koberger's white Elantra leaving around 2:53 a.m. and coming back after 5 a.m. Of course, we know those murders occurred somewhere in that window of time. Now, as I'm coming up to the exit point of campus, we see a lot of these light posts adjacent to the sidewalk here on my right. Now, what I have noticed is that every single one of those light posts that I've seen has a camera sitting right on top, a security camera. So any one of these, if this was one of the roads he took getting back on campus, could have been one of the cameras that picked him up in that white Elantra. As we've made our way off of campus out to one of the main roads nearby, you can see these huge, massive expanses of land on either side of the road. But what you don't see are streetlights or surveillance cameras out here. So I'd imagine after midnight, it's just after 8 o'clock here, but after midnight, I imagine it to be incredibly dark outside of headlights from your car or a few other cars passing by. And you see there's not too many of them right now, not that busy of a road. 2 a.m., 3 a.m. when he was allegedly out heading toward Moscow. So now we've made it to SR 270, State Road 270, the main road connecting Pullman to Moscow, Idaho. A little bit busier. You see traffic intersections, a lot more cars, a lot more businesses on either side. There's a sign, "Welcome to Moscow." And as I'm pulling into this intersection, I see several surveillance cameras. More than likely, some of which that picked his car up, that white Hyundai Elantra, the night of the murders. Here we are. We have reached the campus of the University of Idaho. There's the marquee right there out front. So now we are officially on campus, heading toward the King Road house, where the 4 victims are alive that night. There's a little lay of the land, some fields here on the right, looks like intramural fields. Some barns, sort of probably for the agriculture school up towards the right. As we're coming here, I see a few more cars, a little more busy around this area.
That link I just dropped is for you, Twiz, and AR, if you're still here and want to come up. Oh, Miss Kiki. Are you muted?
Hi, Robert.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay? Is my mic okay?
Yeah, your mic's okay.
Why do I have the echo? I think I have an extra screen open. There we go. Sorry about that.
You like my new golden?
Oh my gosh, Robert, what does the other guy look like? What happened? Oh. Let me see again. What in the world? That's nice.
It's not for once. It's not it's not a condenser mic. It's an actual podcast mic. I got it from my friend Harley. He was hanging up his podcasting boots, so he gave me his mic.
Thank you, Harley.
Liz, I dropped a link for you if you want to come on up. Now this video I put together, it was from Court TV, and I actually there was some timestamps in the video that I'm playing the timestamps, and without playing the whole video.
Okay. Yeah, what date is this from, Robert?
It is actually from one day ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is really interesting. I haven't seen this yet.
Yeah. He actually takes you from the apartments where BK lived on a drive through what he thinks was the route that BK took that night, but we don't exactly know what route BK took that night.
Well, this is
A
going to be
lot
really
more
helpful.
street lights as well. They haven't quite turned on yet, but there are plenty of them out here. So I imagine it when it gets extremely dark that it's not, well lit once these street lights cut on. So now we've made our way through the depths of the university. As you can see, there's a group of students right here in front of me. Very busy out here as school is preparing to start back. But right up here, as we make this left turn onto King Road, on the right, slow it down just a little bit, is where the King Road house would have been. You can see it's blocked off right here. This is the drive that Koberger would have had on November 13th, 2022. We have just wrapped up that drive from Koberger's apartment in Pullman over here to the University of Idaho in Moscow to the King Road location. Of course, the house still has set, and it is still to be determined as to what Brian Koberger alleged once he got here, but this is what that drive would have looked like for him November 13th of 2022. Now, of course, Vinny, one thing I did note when I got on campus here in Moscow was that Sigma Chi house where Xana and Ethan were coming from away from the King Road house.
Jason Jensen, way of tracking combination of cell phone and video, because that phone is off at some point. So that's how investigators have to piece all this together.
Right, Vinny. They had to take a combination because the theory is, or the argument will be, that Brian Koberger turned off his cell phone in tracking. So, that's a sign of a sophisticated. So they had.
Hey, brother.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
So-
I like your new photo.
My baby boy.
Hello, Xander.
So,
How's everybody?
so AR brother, what do you think about the route that this reporter took from BK's apartment to the King Road house? I don't even know what route was took that night. So how can this reporter state that he took the fastest to the house when we don't even know if he actually did it?
Yeah, I obviously personally don't know the route. When I visited the area, there was options, and I know Twizzle Stick knows a lot being from the area, so he's always a great one to talk about that. I haven't watched this show that you're watching. I've been very distant from pretty much all TV and all YouTube here for the short time, going through a few surgeries and a few things. So first time I'm seeing it, so I'm just going to hang out with you guys, watch it a little bit, and hope to learn from you guys as you guys discuss it.
What do you have to say about it, Kiki?
Well, actually, I'm so glad you're playing this right now because I've wanted to learn more about this. I've heard so much talk about also when BK leaves his apartment building and talk about Nevada Street on 2 different live streams now. So I'm really glad you're playing this tonight. Give us a broader understanding.
And Twizzle Stick, if you want to come up, I dropped the link for you as well.
To piece together real-time video footage from surveillance cameras, which clearly indicated that the car was an Elantra, so there's no mistake. And then all the cell phone activity before and after the time of the crime really places Koberger at different parts throughout southern Moscow all the way back to Pullman, and before he left, like Cody had indicated. So it seems like a pretty buttoned-up case in my perspective.
Well, and a couple of things that make this very compelling is the way they're able to get and synchronize some of the video they have when the cell phone is actually on to establish that the phone is in a particular car. And that will be crucial, right? Because if you just have video, I think that's what the defense will be relying upon when this goes to trial.
Yes, and that's one of the things that we experienced throughout, the legal process. And you're familiar, Vinny, as a former prosecutor. Defense attorneys like to take things, different pieces of evidence as a snapshot in time and argue against it. But it's the totality of all this evidence that will make or break the case against him.
And finally, Jason, they're going to claim that he is somewhere else. So to do that, they should have some way to prove that, either video or cell phone, just the same way that.
No, exactly. You would think that there would be a trail taking him from his apartment where Cody was at to the destination, the nature park where he supposedly was looking at the night sky. So we'll see, right?
Absolutely. Jason Jackson, Cody Thomas, great work on the ground in Moscow. I'm Vinny Politan. We will keep looking for answers as the investigation continues. Question that I want to take a look at, which is, how was Brian Kohlberger, the accused killer, tracked from your investigation of the Idaho student murders? I think back to when this story first broke, thoughts in my mind, which I think went through the minds of a lot of parents out there who have sent their children. We worry, but we usually worry about things like grades. Will they get homesick? Will they make friends? Are people being nice to them? Worries that they're real worries, but they're not worst case scenario at Idaho for 4 families. Here's the story.
4 students were brutally murdered in their home near the University of Idaho. Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana taken away so young. And now their accused killer has been charged and is preparing for trial as prosecutors seek the death penalty. It is the case the nation is waiting to see and waiting for justice. But what about the victims' families? How are they dealing with our slow-moving system? We'll find out as Kaylee's mom joins us live as we continue to investigate the Idaho.
Now, the families have shown incredible strength throughout all of this, but each family has their own journey that they're taking. And at one of the memorials that took place, Gonzalez family, Kaylee's family, I think it touched a lot of people. I wanted to show it to you one more time.
Been a blessing in our lives. Watching her grow and mature into the amazing woman she becomes. She was the world to us.
Kaylee is a huge part of our family. The dynamics of we know will. It's hard to accept.
We're gonna miss her. We're gonna miss her more. Anybody knows, and I know a lot of you people, the ones that know her, are gonna be right there with us. It's gonna be a tough road. That kid was she shown light to the day.
The world is a darker place without them, but the light of their love and memories will always guide us all. Thank you all for joining us in this celebration of life of these beautiful souls. We love you, Maddie, Kaylee.
It's amazingly tragic, obviously, but then the story and the case moves into our system of justice. And that brings me to our question, which is, it's a big one. What is justice here? What is justice for the families? Special guests the mother and father of Kaylee Gonzalez, Christy Gonzalez, are with us, as well as the attorney representing the family, Shannon Gray. Thank you all so much for being. I know this is never easy. I think the nation has seen the strength of your family, Christy and Steve, and as you sit here tonight, justice for you. What is justice?
That's a hard question that we've thought a lot. Sometimes I feel that there is no, nothing's going to bring the kids back. And therefore, the only thing that would be justice for me is for this person to be in the depths of hell.
That there's a lot of families who don't actually get somebody that is actually charged for it. So I do feel that we are lucky in that standpoint, and investigators put in a lot of hard work. We're lucky to have that, and we want to be appreciative for that. It's a long, slow process, but willing, and we're ready to do that. We're ready to, put in the time and just show people that this is the way that you can see justice in action, see the truth being taken in place, and then the right outcome, and society gets back to normal.
What do you think, AR? The justice is not, or they're saying there's no justice? And I know you don't like hearing them, but
Well, I think I've expressed my opinion about the Gonzalez quite a bit out there, and then obviously the back and forth that they try to engage. I'm just avoiding it all, being very careful. I know a lot of money is being spread and a lot of conspiracies by them, and I'm just kind of staying out of it. So
yeah, that's why I stopped it, because I didn't want to make you feel uncomfortable by listening to them. So,
well, I appreciate that. It's not really being uncomfortable. It's there's a fine line. You got to be very respectful of a victim's family and the pain that they're enduring, which is very understandable. But then also when they integrate themselves very deeply into a case, reaching out to content creators and others alike, trying to push an agenda or push a narrative. And as many people know, I try to be as respectful as I can be in the way that I word things and the way that I present my conversations about things. But there are times we get frustrated. There's times that we take things to an extreme and we say something that we wish we hadn't said later. So I'm being very, very careful for that. So.
oh, I totally understand that, and I respect that, brother.
Appreciate it.
Now, I wanted to ask you about the IgG or the DNA. Do you? I did a video yesterday called. Could there be some of that going on with the DNA and the IgG?
I didn't quite hear your question, Kiki. If you want to jump in there and answer that, and then maybe I can respond a little better once I catch up to what the question is.
Well, no, the question was, I did a video yesterday, brother, and it was called the fruit of the poisonous tree scenario. Do you feel that maybe how the law enforcement might have went outside the law to get the IgG or the DNA? Could there possibly be a fruit of the poisonous tree scenario?
I've from the beginning, I've stated that not only the way that the DNA has been collected and handled, but then as description comes more available of how it could possibly have been tested or put through the system, I just think it's shoddy. I don't think it was appropriately done. I don't think it's been displayed in a transparent manner on how everything's transpired with that DNA. Even hearing them state that they may not even introduce it at the trial, I think it all needs to be thrown out. I think the DNA needs to be thrown out of this case, and if it's not, I do believe that the Supreme Court, if Brian Koberger is found guilty, is going to deep dive into that. That's going to be a good way that this case gets overturned in appeal, and that would sure, if this is someone that's involved in the crime, that would be a sure way to be looking at a failure of an investigation and our system as a whole. So I think it will have to be visited for years to come.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. What's your thoughts on it, Kiki?
Well, the way that I look at it is that we have a constitutional right to face our accuser when we are charged with something. And although I don't have like the greatest understanding of the DNA and the IgG, I think that my biggest problem is disclosure. Because if this situation was turned on any of us, and let's just say you were innocent and you knew you were innocent, and somehow you were dealing with some sort of touch DNA, and we've read stories about people who were mistakenly a crime pinned on them because of touch DNA. And I'm not saying that's this situation, but everybody should have the right to understand that evidence wholly and completely. And just putting blind trust in the system isn't good enough, because it wouldn't be good enough if it were you. So we have to make sure we're upholding our system, because although we want to protect the rights of our community and keep our community safe and protect the rights of everybody's individual, it's about society and upholding the greatest justice system in the world. And we have to stop the deterioration of our society and the deterioration of our laws and justice system. So, I mean, that's how I feel about the IgG. I'm not saying it was wrongfully done in any way. I honestly don't have the broadest understanding. I do see some issue with the way things were presented statistically. I don't think I've been shown like how that's a little bit off, but anyway, I hope that's a good answer.
There is a question in the chat for AR, and I just put it on the screen.
I think the two male profiles that were found at the scene are going to be an issue, because I really feel as though the investigation dropped the ball in not utilizing the same techniques that they possibly used to get to Brian Koberger, to at least examine or figure out who those DNA samples were to. I know there's going to be a major argument where people are going to state, well, it must not have been relevant, or it was in a different area of the actual crime scene. Well, that can't be true, because they wouldn't have collected it if it wasn't relevant. I'm telling you, in these investigations, everything becomes relevant, because it could tell you some other people were in the home that might not normally be in the home, whether they were on the second floor, the first floor, the third floor. It's all relevant. You've got to be able to narrow down the scope. Is this a single perpetrator crime? Is this a double perpetrator crime? Could there potentially have been a third person involved? Were these people that came into the crime scene after the fact and changed the details of the scene? It all matters. And for investigators to not take that seriously is very, I think, disrespectful to what we as citizens would expect from an investigation transpiring. And it just showcases the lack of transparency. Could it come back to somebody working within law enforcement or something of that nature? I can't tell you, because they didn't do any type of investigation into it. But I know through the years and watching true crime, anytime we heard of DNA being collected at a crime scene, it was a winning situation because we felt like we were a step closer to them figuring out who that was. And in this case, why didn't we move forward with that and at least find out who they were? Because that would dispel some of the conversation after the fact, because there wouldn't be any questions about it. But now there still is, and there always will be, and that's something that should weigh on people's minds.
Yeah, that's very true. Twizzle Stick is joining us on panel. I'm dropping him the link right now. Now I had a chance yesterday to go back and look at the cell phone the cell tower coverage there in Pullman and in Moscow, and the entire area is only covered by 2 cell towers. And here's Twiz. What's up, Twiz?
Yo, yo.
Twizzle Stick, good to see you, buddy.
How are you, sir?
Well, I'm hanging out with you guys, so not a bad night so far.
Did the surgery go well?
I'm extremely sore, but moving around and doing okay, and just preparing for hopefully a easy go of this upcoming week for a smaller procedure, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Nice.
Could be a bigger one. We'll find out. So we'll find out.
Hopefully we'll get good results.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. If it's on the smaller scale, I won't miss any time on YouTube. If it's on the larger scale, I will be out the rest of 2024, and I'll be looking at trying to be back by sometime spring of 2025 on the platform. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
Well, you're always in my thoughts and prayers, brother.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So, Twiz, what do you?
We better not miss you till 2025. What's that?
I said, what did you think about the video I was playing? What are your thoughts and your opinions on it?
Well, depending on which part you're talking about, I've watched it a couple times now, but it's pretty much all a joke.
Well, let's get your thoughts.
That route that dude took from his apartment is completely wrong. Like, I don't even know what that guy was thinking.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Was everyone thinking that he took the quickest route that night, and we don't even know if he actually did it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, he didn't even go by Nevada Street, and they have him on camera twice. Like, the whole route he went was completely wrong. Nothing about... As soon as he pulled out of the apartment complex, he was going in the wrong way.
Yeah, I kind of wish that somebody could just step up to the plate and put their foot down. I do understand there's a gag order in the case, but law enforcement and the courts can still step up to the plate and say, hey, look, we're going to put our foot down. A lot of this stuff that's being spewed all over the place of routes and pictures and this and that, it's nonsense. We need to, quit pushing this crap. Because I'll tell you what, from somebody that's been on that defendant side of things, it's really irritating when the false narratives are the most talked about. And if mainstream media is doing an amazing job of just pushing BS, and it's getting sickening to watch. It's literally sickening to watch. And I really enjoy Twizzle Stick, be able to sit back, and Swamp Rose and Robert, you guys as well as other, people that speak upon it. I sit back and I listen, and I like it when it makes sense. Like when I can put something that's coming out of your mouth into my brain and go, well, that makes sense. I like hearing that. That's kind of refreshing right there. Whereas I'm watching mainstream media and it's the same garbled garbage over and over and over. And I believe it's because there's some money behind all of this. And I saw somebody say, could the Gonzalez be putting up some money to get out a narrative? Absolutely. Trust me. there's no question in my mind that could be possible because they're going to throw around money to get their way and get justice, and I'm sure people are diving into that. That's fine.
Hold on one second.
Go
Sorry, I'll
ahead.
leave a message. No, I'm gonna say, just give me 1 second. There's some people entering the office right now. I'll be right back in 2 minutes. I'm sorry to interrupt you, IR. I should have put it in the private chat.
Kick them out.
No, that's
Well, let's see what I can do.
I don't mind people interrupting me. It probably stops me from babbling, but
You know what?
and that's the thing. Go ahead.
She muted herself.
She muted herself.
Okay.
Go
So
ahead.
just keep talking.
And that's the thing too is, I've wanted to actually say a lot of things within putting out some content here recently that needs to be heard by people that, there's a lot of narratives that people are pushing and it's just absolute garbage and it's so hard to actually sit through and listen. The reality is that garbage is consuming people right now because it's like this story that they can grab onto, but it's idiocracy and it's sickening. And Twizzle Stick, you're from that very area, and when people want to debate you in regards to what routes would make sense and how this would work, you're actually there. You're able to knowledgeably know this is a route he would not have taken. And people want to argue with that, and it's like, it's crazy to me because I was in the area a while back. I did drive around. I did walk the crime scene before it got torn down. I did hop the fence and get near an area I wasn't allowed to be. And, I did do all that. And I did it so I could get a better grasp. And that's why I feel like I don't have to push all this garbage that these people are pushing. It's because I know what reality is. And I definitely appreciate you guys for continuing down that same path of reality because we need that. We need that reality.
We sure do. I think that's one of the largest problems with this case, though, is that it's so much more entertaining to come up with theories about how Brian did it. Him just driving around that night is a boring story, so people don't even want to believe it.
Yeah, but we're also getting into the fact now. Even content creators are falling into this, and I'm not saying all, but there's a good handful that are following into, if we create a narrative, we're going to pull in a crowd that's going to continuously watch us, and that's what's going to be our financial capability of our channels. And I'm monetized, and I've never hidden the fact that I'm monetized, and I do profit from my discussions when I put out videos and I do things, but I feel as though I have to hold myself to a higher standard and accountable, that I'm very careful in what narratives I push or what I have to say, because I don't want to create like a following of a cult-like following that's going to believe everything I say. I want people to better understand the justice system. I want people to get a grasp of what it's like to be a defendant in a very high-profile case like this, where your life is on the line and you're doing everything you can do to protect yourself and defend yourself. And, I can't look in windows of cars. I can't do a lot of this other stuff that some people are doing. It's hard, so... Sorry, I'm rambling. I didn't get to talk to anybody today.
Robert dropped off, so we're just kind of waiting for him to come back. But
yeah, and I think it's a good, I didn't weigh in when you guys were playing those clips earlier, and I just wrote down a couple things, so I guess I'll fill some air right here. But we were talking about the Gonzalez's earlier, and one of the things Christy, when she was talking about her feelings, they were saying how lucky they were that they had someone in jail, and just putting aside the point of what we're trying to figure out here, whether Brian's innocent or guilty. I learned a statistic recently that kind of blew my mind, which is 50% of murders go unsolved in the United States, or it's something really close to that, which is breathtaking, I think. So, that was just a reaction I had, so that I wrote down. And then we were talking about the other two unknown DNAs earlier. And when I was reading the unredacted search warrant, it was interesting. They brought up a case. It was something like El Dorado versus some city in California. But what they were talking about was there was unknown DNA in it, and if I remember correctly, it ended up being law enforcement. And one of the things that they list for unknown DNA, because the workup was, I think it was ran through CODIS. They had a partial workup they ran through CODIS, but that's how you list law enforcement DNA. And of course, I don't have like the right terminology or anything, but I had that reaction too when I heard it. I wanted to bring up, but anyway, that's all I got. Any reaction?
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people that maybe just don't fully understand what CODIS is. It's a very large database, typically composed of people that have felony convictions. And this is how, I mean, once you get convicted of a felony, like I was at a very young age, I had no choice but to go into the CODIS data system. So now at any point in time, if they find my DNA at a crime scene, it's going to hit in that system and they're going to know exactly who it is. And unfortunately for someone like myself, I have to update my actual whereabouts every month so that they know where I'm at because of my past criminal history and what I was charged with and what, all played out. But that's okay. And I know that also, I believe DNA samples in Twizzle Stick and Swamp, you may know maybe a little bit more about this than I do, but I believe gathered DNA from crime scenes, even unsolved crimes, goes into a part of the CODIS database that if future crimes or something come about, they can grab that and then link them together to compare and know that the same people are involved in numerous crimes. So that system's no joke. It takes them literally hours to find out who that DNA's. I've had my DNA taken from certain things and ran through CODIS, and they knew immediately within hours the match of me and the other states I was involved with. So it didn't take them long.
So they have like a database of unknown DNA also in CODIS, is what you're saying, to help connect unsolved crimes. That's that makes a lot of sense.
I believe that. Yeah, I believe they do have that because that's how they could string together, on the serial killer side of things or people like that. They can connect the dots of, well, these 8 crimes are all tied back to this DNA profile. So I don't know exactly how law enforcement utilizes all that. I never deep dived into that, but we know that Brian's was not in CODIS. Otherwise, they would have hit on it immediately when they said that they ran it. So I don't believe police officers have to actually put their DNA into the database, which I wish they would. I think that would be a part of the, maybe a good way. Oh no, Trouble's back.
About time.
No,
yeah.
StreamYard kicked me for some reason. Maybe I pissed off the StreamYard gods.
That happens from time to time, I've heard.
Twizzle Stick, you and I will probably get accustomed to it here soon if we keep venturing to other shows and starting arguments.
Hey, let's do it. I love it.
Okay, so what did I miss?
Probably partial parts of life.
You missed me blabbing about notes that I took while you were playing those clips. So,
Swap, I got to give you some credit. You are so organized and so to the point of being able to take notes as you go. Me, I fly by the seat of my pants, and I think Twizzle Stick, you and I are very much the same. We just kind of speak from the right hip, and here comes our thoughts. But I give you a lot of credit, Swamp. You really get down to business when you're putting those thoughts and the questions on that paper. So good job.
I appreciate that. I only do it because I'm such a cloud chaser. I need to do something, so I can't speak like you guys extemporaneously. But I appreciate that. Thank you, Aaron. And you're so good at speaking off the cuff. I always am amazed like how you're able to put together those videos because I turn the camera on and I'm looking for a script. So
Yeah, and I don't think people actually understand that. My preparation into doing a video is to pat my dog on the head and just say, "Okay, it's time to do a video. What the hell are we going to talk about today?" And I just turn on the camera and pick a topic and talk. I don't do notes. I don't have all that going with me. I just speak and let it go. So if people wonder why I ramble and why it just doesn't make a lot of sense, I think that's probably why.
love your videos, AR.
Well, appreciate it.
I like it too.
Yeah, same here, brother.
I don't need a teleprompter.
I had one up last night prior to the second video that it twizzled a few, ruffled a few feathers of some people, so I put it on private. I still have it, and it got about 300 views before I threw it on private. But I did kind of go after some of the discussions that are taking place in regards to the Aryan of affiliation involvement, and also, you know, we have a content creator that just won't live in reality that he once had a lifestyle that put him behind bars and, you know, put him on the side of having to endure lawyers, and instead of speaking from experience, he wants to bury the experience and act like he's a perfect child, and it kind of frustrated me. So I put out a video and I had to take it down. So one of the first times I've ever done it, but I had to do it.
I do it all the time.
Was it a content creator or somebody outside the YouTube universe?
No, it was not outside the YouTube universe. And like I've always told people, I'm very careful about speaking upon other creators or talking drama. But you know what? It's just a very difficult conversation. And I'm going to say, I watched Nina Kelly's video in regards to how she felt about some things. And it really kind of hit home with me. It touched me. And I sat and I pondered as I was, you know, getting some medical treatment, and I just made the decision I wanted to speak about it. But I quickly came to my realization that, you know, we hold ourselves accountable. We hold ourselves above others, and the way that we conduct ourselves. So I went ahead and put that on private, and I'm going to leave it there. And I might rework the video to where I leave out the content creator angle of it, even though I didn't say names, I didn't point fingers. I think it would be better if I just speak upon the actual direct information rather than linking it to people. So I think I'll probably rework it.
Speedy Bird says, "Put it in Discord." AR Hayes, LOL.
I think many people. Yeah, you know, it's something that I have a lot of knowledge about, and I know a lot of people love the Discord too, and they probably realize like I'm there, but I'm not there. I'm not a good Discord conversationalist. I say hi every once in a while, but I'm pretty disapparent when it comes to social media platforms. But the thing is, and I think we all can come to an agreement that we all have opinions and we have thoughts, and that's great. And we all need to be able to state them and share those and give our experiences. But we also do have to be careful, because Brian Koberger's life is on the line right now, for one, but other people's lives are being changed on a daily. We've already lost 4 people. Families are being changed on a day-to-day basis, and the community and everything else. But I can't take this situation as a joke. To me, this is real life. This is something I've been through, and I'm starting to actually get angry with the certain types of narratives that people are pushing and how careless that they're doing it. And it's frustrating. So
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't like it being turned into, on one side we're watching it literally like it's a movie, and I might as well go buy my popcorn and feel like I'm watching a fictional movie. And then the other side has already got him pegged so guilty. It doesn't matter what happens at trial at this point because he's already guilty, and people are wearing the death penalty shirts because that's where they're at. And it's like, man, I just want to scream and say, have any of you ever had to go through this? Because it really pisses someone off that sat at that table. People don't understand. I didn't have a death penalty case, but I was facing like 15 life sentences with no possibility of parole. And then the drive of so many people trying to get me to tell on other people and give information. And this is real life. This is no joke, man. And, I don't know. I try to be patient, but I'm glad I'm around individuals like yourself that are patient, and it helps me that way as well. But it does get frustrating, and you want to scream, and you want to pull your hair out. You want to get pissed. You want to slam your fist, but you got to be patient. You got to be the bigger person. So.
I'm done being patient with some of these people.
But just like Paul Clark said, not a truer word was spoken, AR. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Well, and I sat with you guys my last time live on a show that, we all, I think, emotionally were tied into that show because it was, the title of it spoke the major words of it all, pro-burgers versus the guilters. And we shouldn't in our lives have to even, why do we have to specify whether we're a pro or a con, or it hasn't gone to trial yet? Come on now. It's some of us just don't agree that it's a fully locked up case. So, and others want to spew misinformation to ensure that it is a locked up case. And that's not right. That's just not right. And, Twiz, I fully respect you for the way that you conducted yourself. Swamp, you handled yourself. Robert, you came in late. And I did have a few people reach out and ask me, why did I bow out? Why did I bow down? Well, I didn't bow out. I didn't bow down. I just got pissed off and didn't want to say anything else.
I could hear it in your voice.
Yeah, it was like I was angry that, I don't know. If someone doesn't fully understand the way the system works, it's the best to state, I don't fully understand how the system works, but I'm doing my best to learn it. And then, people that have been through it can share their experiences, helping people better gauge and understand maybe what's going on. But, I get 250 to 300 emails a day, and 150 to 200 of them are telling me I should be back in prison because of the way I feel and the way I protect criminals. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm not protecting criminals. I'm protecting the view of our rights, our system, our justice system. I want people to better understand it. I want, when there are things going awry, people need to know that. And I don't want to go step before another jury or have another prosecutor that's willing to cut corners. And I don't want any of you or your families to endure that either. So that's why I feel as though it's important that I speak. And, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm over speaking.
It's crazy because, some of those individuals kind of argue against themselves because they say, well, why didn't he give us the alibi sooner? Well, how do you know that he didn't? How do you know that in Pennsylvania he didn't tell the cops that he went to the park and was driving around that night? How do you know he didn't tell Moscow when that happened? You think they're just going to be like, oh, you went to Walleye Park? Okay, you're free.
That was kind of my point in my video last night, and maybe I didn't, clarify. I got to ramble a little bit in that video, and maybe I lost a few people, but there is a very large difference between an interview, an interrogation, and then the actual filing of a motion to the court as a defense mechanism when heading to trial. All these people are hammering on the fact that the motion to the court for the alibi in their mind hasn't been filed. And that must mean Brian Koberger hasn't told people what he was doing or where that's not true. Brian Koberger could have sat for 12 hours completely discussing where he was, what he was doing that night, everything about it. And that's not released to the public because that's a part of the interview and the interrogation that's being held under wraps right now. So he could have been jumping up and down stating his innocence. I wasn't there. This is where I was. This is what I was doing. But because we're sitting at the point now where the motions are going through the court, everybody's saying he didn't give up some sort of alibi. And that's just not true. He sat in a Pennsylvania interview room after being detained, after being arrested. So now it's actually turned out of the spectrum of an interview, and now it's actually an interrogation because you're under arrest at this point. So anything that you say is no longer being utilized to try to figure out, your dynamic of where you were, what you were doing. You're under arrest for a reason. They feel like you did it. So now that whole conversation is to push you to tell on yourself. They're trying to get a confession at this point. And thankfully, Brian Koberger, it sounds like, cut that short after 15 minutes or whatever it was to save himself that hassle of them trying to get him to put pen to paper and tell on himself. So we don't know, Twiz, just like you stated. He could have been given the whole story to the law enforcement. They just didn't listen to him because they were trying to pin the crime on him. So
they said,
we don't
prove
know.
it, and then withheld the evidence. Go figure.
Well, yeah, and that's really what it is. And Twiz, you've always been right in what you said, and I think all of us have harped on this. It is very hard to prove your alibi when you have to rely on evidence coming back from the state because they are the ones that have done the cell phone and all the tower work and everything. That's their job. That's the investigation. Brian Koberger doesn't have that capability to go do that. He doesn't have the capability to get the necessary tools to prove his alibi. And that's why they made the very bold, clear statement, we are going to utilize the state's experts to prove Brian Koberger's alibi. I don't understand why people miss the point of that. Why are you not understanding what they're saying? They're going to use the evidence to prove his alibi. That's all they're saying.
Yep.
We have a compliment on the screen by Christy in Nevada. I'm very thankful for all four of you. You guys use common sense. You don't do drama, and you let everyone have their own opinions, and no one judges anyone.
Well, we try to be like that. I mean, we try to be like that. It's getting more and more difficult as we're going through this to not separate ourselves from certain dynamics or certain creators or certain thought processes, because as open-minded as we all want to be, we can be brought into other people's little circles and what they're, and I fell trapped to that kind of in the beginning, to where I fell into some circles, and because I wanted to legitimately be a nice guy and I wanted to get along with everybody, I just kind of always, kept my mouth shut and gave them credit for this or that. Now I'm starting to learn, man, that was a bad mistake. I just should never have done that. I'm truly thankful for the creators that helped me get the footing to even get comfortable as a content creator. I look at the people like True Crime with Diego, even Cluminati, Bubbly Waters, that all gave me very good support when I first came out. And I'm appreciative of that. And I'll never forget that because they paved a pathway for me to get to where I am and build the confidence I have. But I also understand that we've all gone our separate ways due to the fact that we don't all look at this in the same light. We don't feel the same way about the way this case is played out. And that's a good thing that we all have done that. And I'm just finding myself now, there's content creators out there that I'll have nothing to do with. I don't watch them. I don't engage them. I don't support it. I don't put them down, but I don't want any part of it. And if that sets me aside as just kind of a true crime loner, then so be it. You know, I sat in a solitary cell for so long that I'm okay to do that. But you guys are all good people, and that's why I still engage with all of you, and I appreciate all of you. And you know, I stand with you guys through the hard times and the good times, and definitely appreciative. So
Thanks, AR.
I'll always be there with you too.
Yeah, same here,
Appreciate
AR. Yeah.
I do have a quick question though. You had dealt with like fruit of the poisonous tree in some of your cases, right?
I have, yep.
Can you like explain how that works?
Yeah, and that, you know, this Twiz is probably a good maybe personal video I should do, taking one of my cases where DNA was found at the scene. And I remember it pretty well because it was a crime scene that a few of us had broken in to an actual. It wasn't a house, but it was kind of like a business building that had a residential tie to it as well, meaning that I guess they were authorized to live in the back of, you know, the office building. So it was residential / workspace. And we had broken into it, and my entire part was just to get the door open, because that's unfortunately what one of my specialties was, is I could get in and out of just about any lock. So I got the doors open, and in the process, I didn't realize it, but I lost my hat. So my hat had come off at the crime scene, and I didn't realize I left. So I guess it's kind of comparable to like the sheet, the crime scene. It's a left behind, you know, piece of evidence that you didn't realize that you did, or whatever it might be. And so at that time, they obviously had the hat, and they were taking DNA from it, but they utilized the back door system, which is the fruit of the poisonous tree. They went through the IgG systems that law enforcement was not allowed to utilize. But because they've set up these different ways of doing it, they have passwords or whatever where they can bypass the actual entering of information that law enforcement has to enter to clarify that they're law enforcement. And they were able to go in as if they were a private citizen, and they were looking for, you know, like adoptive family members. And you know, I happen to have been in that system with a couple of family members because obviously I'm adopted. And I also had a sibling, a sister who was adopted right after me, that was in the system as well, because they were all trying to find, you know, brothers and sisters and family members. So obviously we both came up as a hit in the system of the IgG. And they actually tracked my sister down first, who I had never even met in life at that time. And, you know, they connected the dots that because it couldn't have been her, it had to have been me. So that's how they tracked me down. And when we got to the court process, they never mentioned that they actually utilized IgG in their process. They, you know, same thing with Brian Koberger. They were able to get a buccal swab from me that they then compared to the hat DNA, and it was a match. And I got it all thrown out in the court. So the DNA was suppressed in that court hearing, and that's how.
Did we just lose AR?
Oh my god! Like right at the most important part of the story.
He did that on purpose.
I know, right?
Well, I did a video yesterday, Twiz, and it was about Fruit of the Poisonous Tree. If you don't mind me pulling it up.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch it. I actually do have to get off here in a few minutes. I just wanted to bring something up with AR. But he just dropped.
I don't think he's gonna be back.
His phone probably died or he lost connection.
Yeah.
He'll take the opportunity to not come
Is
back.
there possible
But my understanding with Fruit of the Poisonous Tree is if they
illegal searches and seizures going
get
on?
evidence wrong
personally-
or lie.
AR's back.
Is Fruit of the Poisonous Tree always like part of like a Frank's hearing? Is that because it has to do with the?
Well, I think that's more of a suppression hearing, just from what he said right there. But you could probably use it in Frank's as well.
It's
Okay,
interesting.
we got Paul Clark. Could what you're saying apply to Brian's case? Father, stepsister, and stuff. Why did they go all the way to his family's home to get further DNA that judge won't turn over?
Well, the second one was to get the definitive because all they had, I think, if I'm understanding your question, the second part of it, the first sample that they had was from the sheep, and so they compared that to when they found the IgG. They did the genetic genealogy search, made a match, but then now that they had to actually match the DNA on the sheep to the new sample, like a definitive sample from him or from the from the trash, so that they can make sure that there was a connection, because they're not allowed to use IgG. It's like a lie detector test. Like you're allowed to use it to find, to help find a suspect, but it's not admissible in court. I hope I answered that.
Yes, Speedy Bird just asked, oh yes, what's the Frank's hearing about in the Idaho court case? Would you like to cover that, AR? What a Frank's hearing is?
I can in a second. I heard Twiz and Swamp kind of explaining the IgG. So I guess the best way to sum up, the IgG in my case was determined to be a false way of gathering the actual arrest. And then because they took the buccal swab after the fact of the IgG misinformation and the way that they utilized that, the DNA was no longer able to be used at the trial because Fruit of the Poisonous Tree means they cheated the correct way of collecting the DNA and getting to me. And I know a lot of people will say, well, why did they go out, all the way to Pennsylvania? They were trying to rectify their mistake by going out to Pennsylvania and saying, hey, we collected this trash, and this is how we were able to get to Brian Kohberger, and this is how we were able to gather the DNA evidence, rather than them saying, hey, by the way, we cheated the system. We went in the back door to try to get a leg up, to try to speed this up and get this arrest. And that's where, Bill Thompson's like, oh, we didn't need, the IgG. We're not bringing that in. Yeah, you did. You did need it. You used it. You cheated the system. Now you're hiding that fact, and it's gonna get you because you didn't have Brian Kohberger's DNA. You didn't even get Brian Kohberger's DNA when you went to Pennsylvania. You got his dad's. You cheated the system because you would have never known to go collect his dad's DNA if you hadn't cheated the system. So this is it's gonna be a big deal in the courts, and I know a lot of people don't think it is, but remember, the defense won getting all that information, and if it wasn't a big deal, they wouldn't have won that. They wouldn't have got that information. So they now have that, just like in my case, they got it as well, and it's going to help them at trial. I'm telling you right now, it's going to help them.
Oh, just wait for this though, because you said that they lied to get that evidence, right?
Yeah,
and then later on it was thrown out. So let's talk about the cell data, because what they did was look at what towers he connected to and where their coverages areas are, and they drew that possible route from the house, having no proof that he was there. They made that map where he was, and they used that to arrest him, right? It's all bullshit. It was all a lie. Everything done after that is going to be fruit of the poisonous tree, including the buccal swab and the GPS data. Sorry to crush some dreams out there in the YouTube world, but the GPS ain't going anywhere.
And that's why I've jumped up and down, and Twiz, I know you're doing it too, and Swamp, you've done deep. I think we all have, in the sense that the PCA was a theory-based written document to get an arrest, but now we're starting to realize even those theories just aren't adding up. So, now the entire arrest altogether is going to be in question. And I get how the people that work with law enforcement or have worked in the past law enforcement are always going to stand up and say, oh, they got the right guy. They did it the right way. They're not going to engage in a discussion that they could have possibly done something very wrong here. And it's obvious that this area has been known to have made mistakes and done things wrong, whether they be intentional or unintentional. We know of other cases that they've done things wrong. And this, unfortunately, is going to bring a lot of negative light to the area. I just wish people would be, like you said, more open-minded. Just listen to what's actually going on. And that's why I try to recommend to people that always approach me. And I don't try to sway people in certain directions of believing anything. It's just open your mind, listen to things, and then try to make common sense out of them. If it doesn't add up to something being common sense, just like you're stating, Twiz, in regards to the cell phone records, if this was so solid, the cell phone records being as solid as they're trying to make them to be, to where they could even pinpoint a route, they would have already turned over all that information to defense. They would have proudly done it. They would have had it right in their hands. It would have been just downright nailed, and they don't have it even now. I mean, we're on our 16th motion to compel evidence. It seems like the prosecution's now struggling with where the investigators left them. And Bill Thompson needs to step up to the plate and say, hey, look, maybe we got to hold off right now on this whole thing. We need to let Brian Koberger out. I got to dismiss charges till I either get more evidence to bring up new charges, or I may just have to sit on my hands and push for a better investigation. I don't know. But where we sit right now...
Have you seen the interview with that Garrett guy yet?
I've browsed... a couple of people that that want to think that that's something. To me, it's bogus BS. But
listen to his cell phone stuff, because what he says is that he looked at what they had for the cell phone information, and by that time all they had was the PCA, and he laughed because of how bad it was. And he's a cell phone expert as well.
Yeah, I did catch that. So now it's literally two people. It's actually him and Cyray both stating that the state cell phone stuff is pretty bogus and not up to what they...
I've been saying that since before both of them said it. and I didn't know shit about cell phones back then compared to what I know now.
Yeah, I just, it's sketchy. It's definitely sketchy with the shortcomings happening in the investigation. I think it's all coming to light, and we'll see. We'll see how it. I do unfortunately believe that this is going to trial. I know many people think this isn't going to make it to trial, and I wish I could jump on that and say that I didn't feel like it would either. But I do feel like this is going to trial. And it's all because of the notoriety of it. I don't think that, the prosecution's not going to back out of this now, because they put all their eggs into one basket with Brian Koberger. And I believe that Judge, from what I've endured and experienced in my lifetime, is one of the weakest judges I've ever seen. I don't think that he can make a ruling or a decision in a timely manner. And I don't think that he shows confidence in the decisions he is making. Like, he's not putting his foot down saying, hey, by the way, prosecution, you need to have the evidence turned over by this date, otherwise it's punishable by this. I mean, he's just kind of letting things flow as if he's like, come on, guys, I'm trying to pat you on the butt to get this to trial, no matter what's going wrong.
But exactly where is the trial going to be at? Is it going to be in Latah? Is it going to be in Boise? Where is the trial going to be at, brother?
I think everything bows down. It's going to happen right there in Latah. I think it's going to be right in the very courthouse that we're watching everything happen right now. I don't think there's going to be any change. Now don't mix my words. I didn't say I didn't feel like there should be a change. I'm just saying I don't think there will be.
I'll be super surprised if it stays here.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
It would blow my mind. I don't think it'll, at least not on that trial date. The only way it'll make it to trial, I think, is if they do a Franks hearing, which throws out the arrest warrant, which they can do right now. They have the evidence. And they'd have to rearrest Brian, recharge him, but then they don't have to waive their speedy trial right.
Right.
That's like the more likely thing that I see happening. What Anna's going to do is prove 100% that Brian didn't do this. But I still don't think it'll be the trial.
Like, I believe that in late August, here on the 29th, we're going to begin the hearing on the change of venue. I don't believe it's going to be long after that a Franks hearing is called. Like, I could see it within days. The motion will be filed, and then we're going to get into that battle.
It'll happen after the state's deadline to hand over what am I talking about? Evidence. Because the state's deadline to hand over evidence is the next week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's gonna be really quick, and then at that point, if somehow the Franks hearing doesn't go in the direction for the defense that it could, the motions to suppress evidence will be not long after that, and they'll be violent and in a fast pace that they're going to be attacking that. And then I believe that another Franks hearing will come even right after that. So if people legitimately think this is going to trial next year like it's set to do, they're going to be sadly mistaken that this is a long ways away from trial. It's a very, very long way away.
Ebert asked, what is it? She goes, what is a Franks hearing, please?
You cut out. I couldn't hear you.
What is a Franks hearing, please?
Yeah, Ebert asked, what is a Franks hearing, please?
I'm going to defer to you guys. I think Twiz and you guys can explain it quite well. I think I'll defer and let you guys talk.
As far as I understand it, it's just their ability to challenge the validity of warrants and affidavits. So if there was like either not necessarily intentionally wrong information, but like wrong information or a lie or something, you can get warrants and affidavits thrown out.
Yeah, that's the very good basic way of explaining it, and I can kind of add to it. When a defense team comes to realization that the prosecution has either manufactured evidence or secured some sort of evidence in a false manner, meaning that it is not going to be able to be utilized in a court of law, you could call a Franks hearing, go over that said evidence, how it was collected, why it was collected, and what it truly means to the case itself. And if it's deemed as something that has nothing to do with the upcoming trial, that evidence, without actually being suppressed, is just deemed not usable, and that cuts down the amount of evidence shown for the arrest. So you're right, they're going to attack the arrest warrant, and they're going to say, well, if this isn't utilized and this isn't utilized and this isn't utilized, then none of this arrest warrant is actually real and true. So they're going to boot that arrest warrant out. And, you know, I've screamed in this case, you boot this arrest warrant out based off of factors like cell phone data or car data or lack of evidence on videos that they utilized to write that PCA, because remember, they deemed that the DNA was not a part of their arrest warrant, even though it's clearly stated in the PCA. They said that that was not utilized to get the arrest warrant. Well, now if we can attack that arrest warrant, guess what's gone? The buccal swab. Now, if the DNA buccal swab is no longer admissible because the arrest has been kicked out, meaning there should never have been a buccal swab, now you have no DNA. Now you have no case. Everything's gone at that point. And you can't get the DNA back into the mix at any point there forward. So never can DNA be spoken upon again in this case. If that arrest warrant gets booted, then what are you going to try him on? What are you going to try him on at that point? And that's why they should have been.
We feel like he was the guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now they've made the declaration that a lot of this is feeling and an opinion based on a theory-based collection of information. I don't know what else they may have behind closed doors, but they sure have not come out with any strength or validity saying, even without disclosing what it is that they have, I would think that we would have heard the prosecutor either in emotion or slamming his fist down on the desk in the courtroom at one of these hearings saying, trust me, we've got so much more that none of this shit matters, and they haven't done that. So I don't think they have more. I just don't.
What are your thoughts, Kiki? You're kind of quiet.
Well, I'm just listening to everybody. I did write 2 points down while you guys were talking, which was AR was talking about, or you guys were talking about, I think AR, you mentioned you didn't think it was going to move from Latah County. And I think, or I've heard, and I think it might be true, is that the more that they can, one of the defensive strategies can be pushing the trial date out so it becomes almost impossible for the community to actually accommodate the trial. And that can be another way that they can get it moved through delays. And then we were also talking about, we were just talking about a few different things, and I had wrote down that, you know, one of the most recent documents that we went through is this 16th motion to compel for evidence. And it just makes me think of that other trial in Boise, the Daybell trial, where the judge, because of certain things, put sanctions on the prosecution. And by doing that, they were able to remove the death penalty. And so when you see something like the 16th motion to compel, I mean, I wonder if that's what's coming next. So anyway, those are the things that I wrote down when you guys were talking.
Well, I believe we all know that Ann Taylor's pushing to get the death penalty off of the table at all costs, no matter what. And she's going to utilize the effect that she can't render proper counsel due to the fact she's not even getting the evidence turned over in a timely manner. So how could she ever actually prepare this for a death penalty case trial if she can't even get the actual evidence in her hands to be able to do so? So, yeah, I mean, I've been involved in cases. Like I said, I sat in jail for 7 years to be, the charges dropped the day before trial was to start because just all kinds of a mess going on. And I could see that absolutely happening in this case too. I could see at some point the prosecution saying, you know what, we're going to drop charges because they can rearrest at any point in time. I mean, murder cases have no stipulation of time on an arrest. So I think they rushed to an arrest to begin with that they should never have done. And they know they've got that effect on their side. They could actually drop charges and come back later.
Yeah, but would the burglary charge be taken off the table if they did do that, or would it still be part of the indictment?
Well, I mean, if they refile charges, they're going to refile with that charge in there. I'm actually surprised at the lack of charges for this type of crime that it's been charged, because you can, I mean, as many of you guys know, you can stack the deck on charges if you really want to, and they could get all kinds of stuff from the attack, and there's so many charges they could have filed and didn't. They would never hold Brian Koberger on a burglary charge, to wait to try to charge him later on a murder. That wouldn't do him any good. So they would dismiss all and then refile down the road.
Now, if they did, this is like a what if scenario. If they did take the death penalty off the table and they got him with life in prison, would it be life with parole or life without parole?
No, he could never get parole. Not on charges like this. Not on a quadruple. They would stack them to protect that from ever happening. Even if somehow it got squeaked through with a parole tied to the end, let's say it was life with parole, they would stack them. So he would have to serve 25 years minimum on the first charge, 25 years on the second charge, 25 years on the third, 25 years on the fourth. Then he would become parole eligible on the fourth and final case, or they could stack all four of those and then hit him with the burglary to all run consecutively. Mm-hmm. And then the burglary charge would actually be the one where the parole would become eligible. So 100 years. The burglary charge probably carries 3 years. So he would get parole after 101 years, maybe.
Yeah, he wouldn't be alive then.
No.
Mm-mm. I don't know, with modern medical technology.
Yeah,
it's not out of the question.
I watched a movie the other day when I was laying around like a Dumbo, that Demolition Man, where they freeze people like so they come back later 200 years down the road or something. I'm thinking, if they start doing that for people with life with parole, it's like maybe I could actually get out after serving a life sentence with parole. Who knows?
I actually watched that movie today too.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing. I was just BSing around. But I'll tell you what, this is one of the first times, like literally, health issues have kind of just taken me off my feet to where I'm nowhere as active as I'm used to being, and I'm used to being out about, moving, talking, doing things. And now it's, I walked my dog to go to the bathroom, a week ago, and I haven't been able to do it since. Jen's been having to do it all for me because, I'm having a hard time moving and walking. And so we'll kind of see how that's all playing out. I've been on a walker the last few days, and I hate it. I don't even want to go in public with it. So,
well, use it. The worst thing you can do is fall, AR. God.
Yeah, I learned that. I fell trying to go to the restroom the other day, and Jen just about had a heart attack because there I was laughing, laying on the floor giggling. She's like, "This is not a funny moment. You can't even get up," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." But it just kind of made me giggle because here I lay on the floor. But so hopefully we just keep getting more strength and keep on battling. So
it'll come a little day by day.
Yeah. Thankfully. Yep. You just got to keep smiling and stay positive. And, it's like, I think all of us are feeling as we get a day older, we start to feel it a little bit more. We don't want to acknowledge it, but, as we get a little bit older in age, we start to feel the little creaks and the little prods and, but thankfully I've got a great support system. An amazing wife that pushes me to continue to just try to keep getting better and get mentally stronger, because there for a while when I got the diagnosis and, I'm sitting there and I haven't really shared what all, got brought down with, the ambulances having to come get me out of the room. And I couldn't get up. I was in the shower and it looked like a murder scene in the house with blood everywhere from, stuff going on. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't stand back up from an injury or not feeling well. And they rushed me to the hospital, and I've never had to endure that before. So it's an eye-opening experience, but she's pushing me to be smarter within my thinking and the positivity. And all of you guys have been very supportive too. I get a lot of messages every day keeping me going and giving me ideas. And so just so that some out there don't really know, because I haven't disclosed it, I had a portion of my large intestine removed. And next week they're going in, they're going to open up and look at my kidneys a little bit deeper, because they feel as though my right kidney is at full non-functioning point, and my left kidney, and unfortunately, is pretty low on functionality as well. And that's a stem of the dialysis for the years upon years that I've been on it. So we're going to see what we can do with that. But so right now I'm healing from an initial surgery on the large intestine that they removed some cancerous tumors and some things out of, and we feel as though that went pretty well. And we'll see what next week brings. But that's why I'm saying we're going to find out real quick whether I'm going to be back continuing to work alongside all of you and be able to do the content, or if I'm going to be down for some time frame. I think they said that a hospital stay for me, if I do have to go through the next wave of surgeries, the hospital stay is going to be 6 months to 8 months, as they'll have to remove a kidney and then try to figure out where we go from there, because I'm not eligible for a transplant or anything of that nature. So we'll gauge it all out at that point. So positivity, that's all I can say to everybody. Stay positive and keep your heads up and keep moving forward. That's what I'm doing. So
we have a question from Heather Fitzgerald on the screen. At True Crime Cult question: why do you think the MSM is still trying to run the same narrative, especially after this survey results being filed?
I don't know. You guys answer.
Well, I just don't want to skirt over what you just said, AR. And, I just, even though you're not a candidate for a transplant, I know someone who's living right now late into their 80s with one kidney. And it's not saying there wasn't complications, but you can live a good, long, healthy life. So we're just all praying for you. And thanks for sharing so much of your personal story, because, somebody needs to hear it out there tonight. And anyway, just want you to know we love you. So, and as far as the means, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I just wanted to say I appreciate it. I thank all of you. Obviously, it's a great support system. We're all here for each other. This one big family, and it's very much appreciated. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I remember starting on my true crime journey, and I'm actually thankful that it's led me to this group right here. Because we're all friends and we all support each other, and we've built a pretty good community within this true crime community, because we're all working partners.
I agree. So I know, Robert, you read a question. I'm sure you guys need to jump in and answer that. It was a good question. I just don't even remember what it was.
About MSM still pushing the same narrative, even though the survey questions have already been, the survey has already been filed.
Well, I mean, you got a I'll throw my 2 cents in. Then I'd love to hear from the others as well. But I'm just going to state, MSN, is about the money. I feel as though the agenda and the narrative that they pushed has brought in a substantial amount of viewers and believers and followers. Otherwise, people like Nancy Disgrace and Banfield and them would not be stuck on a certain narrative. They know that's where the money's flowing. And it just, in my opinion, in my perspective, and I hate to put it out there this way, but the guilt is always more profitable than the innocent, because people just like to know the story of how and why somebody's guilty and get to watch the interrogation of it and then the investigation, and it's all so mesmerizing to them, where innocent just means that you don't know anything, and that's not as profitable. So MSN is making huge amounts of money, and they're sharing that money with people that are willing to back up that narrative and flow with it. And that's why the Gonzalez, I shouldn't even get into this, but the Gonzalez family is willing to put themselves out there. They're not doing these interviews for free, ladies and gentlemen. These interviews are not being paid for. Kara Northington did not get on to Ashley Banfield's News Nation for free. That she got paid for that, and that's why I say mainstream media is making buku dollars. Books are being written. All of this being happening. Now show me, out of anybody making the huge amounts of dollars in MSN or writing books, show me one person that's claimed innocence. I'll wait.
I can't say there's one, but there's a couple that are like somewhere in the middle that aren't like terrible guilters,
Right. Well, and I'm not saying that there's not people in the middle. I'm just saying, show me a book, show me a documentary, show me anything that's profited money that's been put out and produced outside of YouTube or us creators or stuff like that, that's profited on innocence.
Can't think of one.
Yeah. Same here. Guys, guilty pays. I'm telling you right now. If all of us as content
Until
creators,
defamation comes through.
right? But I'm just saying, like right now, if we all wanted clicks and money, if I wanted to really build my channel and have 40, 50, 60,000 subscribers, all I got to do is flip over to the guilty side and explain from my experience how I know Brian Koberger's guilty. And guess what? My views and everything would skyrocket. And people would like me more. People would like me more. But I'm not going to do it. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to make the very grand statement, because I've had people ask me. I do not believe Brian Koberger's guilty. I do not see him as a person that committed this crime, and I'm not going to switch teams and state that I feel as though he could possibly have done it, because I don't feel like he did. So that's where I stand, and I'm very secure in that position. At the end of the day, even if they find him guilty, I'm still going to have questions in regards to the actual investigation and the way this was handled. Sure, I'll, at some point, if something comes out that showcases there's no other way, then I'll admit that I was wrong. But at this point, I'm not changing my stance. So I don't.
Neither am I.
I stand right where I stand.
Show me some evidence.
Yeah,
that's just it. Why is Bill Thompson sealing everything up? I mean, he says it's for to protect it for a fair trial. Well, that may be the case, but at the same time, 16 requests for evidence, and he hasn't handed over all of it, but yet he wants to get a protective order for the IGG so Ann Taylor and her defense team can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, this is unfortunately our court system, and
then Ann Taylor responds and laughs at him for sealing it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look outside to just even the Brian Koberger Idaho 4 case. Imagine how many cases this is happening across the United States, across the board, on a day-to-day basis. This is happening.
And we just don't
Day-to-day
hear about
basis.
it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've sat in jails that house 3,000 people, and on a daily basis, I would see 100 to 200 people go home with charges dismissed or they won at trial, false evidence. I mean, I saw it daily, and people never want to recognize that. They don't want to talk about it. Not everybody is always guilty. I mean, that's why we have a system that we have, is to put people through the justice system to find fair equality in trials. But right now, I think we're just at a situation where maybe law enforcement's understaffed, maybe under budgeted, under trained. There's a lot of issues going on, and investigations aren't being conducted as smoothly or as carefully as I think they should be.
Yeah, see, just like with Brett Payne, he didn't when he got hired to the Moscow Police Department. He had no police background. He had just come out of the military, and they hired him like pronto. And
I think he was a military police for like 3 years or something.
So he was an MP.
Yeah.
But I mean, what blew my mind is I know you were probably sitting in the courtroom that day, Twiz, was when Ann Taylor asked him, about I forgot what it was about, and he goes, I always give my paperwork to the people who's smarter than me. And then when Jennings asked him, well, who told you to say all this? And he goes, you did. And and I noticed old Bill Thompson was turning purple.
Hey, Robert.
Yeah.
Somebody left a super chat. Can you display that for us? I just want to say Motoman MX, thank you so much for the blessing. Do you see that, the big yellow one? I don't know if it's showing up.
I see it.
Could we highlight that?
Yeah. It says it seems that here we go. It seems all the emergency response money was used to fuel a narrative of guilty to push a guilty verdict because they couldn't be bothered to investigate the case properly.
Well, that's an interesting statement. Do you think that, I mean, I would imagine with the $1 million, they have to allocate it, or obviously have limits to how they could spend it. But I wonder if media is one of those expenses they're allowed to. You bring up a really good question that, I don't necessarily know the answer to, but we definitely will find out an answer to that. What do you guys think?
I know for a fact in some of my cases when I was younger, a part of the allocation of funds was for actual discussion with the media and to put out information. I don't know if that's the case in the Idaho, but I know in my case they had a certain allocation of money that was to go out for the press releases and the different, conferences that they had and discussions. So that was all covered and paid for.
So money from the state was used to publicize the prosecution's narrative against you?
Yeah, it went out through the press conferences, so they had to pay for the venues that the press conferences were held at. They had to pay for the time of people that attended those and were involved in those. And yeah, so they had a certain allegation. Obviously, I don't know how much of the funds or that was never disclosed to me. And I was never one that cared, but the state's funding has numerous breakdowns of what the money can be utilized for, and they have to show where they allocated that to if the demand is there. But anybody and everybody can put in an actual motion to the court to get that information. I know JLR's done it a couple times already with this case.
That would be interesting. I wonder if
Yeah.
BK could use that later on too.
We got
Yeah.
one from Leslie and Billy, a $2 super chat. Love you all. Thanks for all that you do. And then Jackie said a $4.99 super sticker.
Thank you so much for the blessings. We really appreciate it. And, you know, the chat makes the conversation so much better because you bring up all of the things that were, you know, all the questions and all the, it's very thought provoking in the chat today, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
Meg P has a question for us. Does anyone know the undercover officers' names?
Well, they would be undercover for a reason, so that would not come out till trial.
Unless she's talking about Banfield. I don't know.
Rosie was one of them.
Yeah, see what's weird about Banfield, guys, is when they did that alcohol stop, you had those college students go, "Well, we thought you were imaginary."
That was such an unconstitutional stop. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
That's why all those kids' tickets were dropped like that week. That's crazy.
Yeah, that whole
Heather
situation just never sits right. Just never sits right. But
You can't look at somebody and decide that they're underage. So just because they're walking across the street, you have no reason to stop and talk to them. That's wild.
Yeah,
they're just assuming because most of the time people in the frats are like the younger ones, either freshman or sophomore. So they just know that if you're walking towards the frats, you're probably underage. That's why they're just standing there waiting for them to cross to stop them.
I still feel like you had to have a reason, though. Just like if they're going to pull me over in my car, you have to have a justifiable reason to pull me over. And I've definitely learned my rights through the years. Like I don't just hand over my driver's license and my insurance when they ask me for it. I go through the whole routine with them. Why'd you pull me over? What gave you the reasoning that you were looking for that? I mean, I go through it all before I'll even give up my ID. So.
And then they get mad at you for standing up for the rights that they swore an oath to protect.
Oh yeah, they get very mad, very upset.
Very I wonder why people are starting to not like police more and more.
Well, then it's even more funny when they go back to their car. Once I do actually hand over my license, and they go back to their car and they run me, and next thing you know, guns are drawn. And my wife still to this day freaks out because every time we get pulled over, I get pulled over, which is one of the reasons why I don't drive. I have to get out, lay on the ground, be cuffed. Let them go through my background history. They have to search my car. So I just don't drive anymore because of all that. It's too much of a hassle.
Because of your history?
Oh yeah. I have crimes in my past that were endangerment of law enforcement. So they take it to the extreme. Even though these things are so old, so outdated, they still take it to the extreme. So.
And we have a super chat from Meg P. I saw a video where the undercover cops were walking to their car, and the law enforcement officers, or LE, spotted him weird.
I saw a video where the undercover walked to their car. Oh wait, where'd it go?
I just don't know where that video is. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I've seen it.
I mean, I don't trust the cops around here, especially with underage kids. That's why, like on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturday nights, like I will not go driving around Pullman because they'll literally pull you over for anything.
Is the golf course in Pullman still a 9-hole course with the little fireplace and everything in there and the bar, like it used to be in the past?
I've never remember really been there.
Washington State offered me a full ride scholarship when I was 17. I had already been locked up, for a couple of years, but I was a great golfer, and I had, obviously good grades in school. I was already taking college classes, but they offered me a scholarship, so we went up to visit the campus, and the little golf course was just amazing. But I had like a little bit of a snow drizzle because it must have been November-ish or something while we were in the area. But you could easily just walk into town to where the bars were and the parties were happening, and then obviously you could just cruise right across the border into Moscow and have a few more beers if you wanted to. But it seemed like
I think
little
they
area.
made they made a golf course when I lived here before, so it might be full size now. I'm not sure.
Makepeace says, I have it, Twiz. Can I send it to you?
I was also thinking if you could tell us the timestamp on it too, it'd be helpful. We'd definitely look into it. I'm trying to think if it was because when you initially see the runners and they yell to them, was it then or was it when they were walking to the other location on the side of the street?
At Twizzle Stick is the video where it looks like one of the roommates walking somewhere.
Oh, that one is so weird. I don't know if they were undercover though. But basically like a cop car like stops right on that, I think it's Queen Road. It's right by the house. And they just walk away, but the dash cam is still on. And then eventually you see a girl walk by. And I think it is Dylan, I'm not sure. But that one's really weird.
Twiz, I think they're all weird.
Well, I mean, that's true.
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, when we reflect back, and it's crazy to see because obviously nobody knew this crime was going to transpire. But now looking back from today to back then and watching these videos of people answering the doors at the parties and the way people interacted, you know, when the cops knocked on the back door and you got, you know, Hunter coming out first and then Kaylee next and Hunter hanging out after. I mean, it's just all weird. It's all weird, you know, to watch Xana, you know, come out a little bit, you know, intoxicated, but still trying to be respectful with the officers and answer. It's just like, it's such a hard thing to reflect back upon because we know loss of life and just the tragedy that happened, but then also, I feel like there's so many oddities that add up to the worst investigation possible. But even the fact that the officers were in the area before the crime even happened, just minutes before. And it's like, what the hell? That never happens, you know? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Too weird.
Well, see, like, you know, for the longest time, that ladder was laying next to the house. And then all of a sudden, it's propped up on, near the ledge that leads to Xana's room. And the only thing I can think of is that maybe Hunter Johnson used it the day that he discovered you know, Xana and Ethan's bodies. Because maybe he tried to get in through the door and he couldn't get in through the door, so he went outside to grab that ladder and climbed up on that ledge to try to access the window to Xana's room. And that's the only way I can think that's why that ladder was propped up there.
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. No idea.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Sadly, I don't even think the investigators have an idea. I don't know.
No. I'll actually kind of be sad if this doesn't go to trial because then we won't get all of the evidence shown, you know?
Yeah, this would be a devastating cold case. Let me tell you, this would just be a tremendously devastating cold case. Now, obviously, we all want true justice and the right people to be held accountable for this. But at the end of the day, if this went to a cold case, I just don't know. The families would never be able to recover from it. We already know Brian Koberger and his family will never be able to recover from this. I mean, this is just devastating across the board. And then for it to be wrapped up and tied with a bow of you'll never know what actually happened, I think that would make many people sick to their stomachs for sure.
Yeah. It would be really sad.
The house down. I mean, and the way Bill Thompson put it was, oh well, the scene of the house has changed. No, the feeling of the house has changed. So now you have these jurors who won't be able to walk through the house and be able to hear everything that happened that night. They have still pictures and they have an Oculus glasses to see the 3D renderings of the house. Now, is that going to hurt the case, or by not having the physical house there?
I think so.
It sure
Because
as
you
hell
won't be
can
able
help
to.
it.
You can't hear anything. You might be able to see like a decent reproduction of it, but I don't know. Everything
Well,
about it's weird.
this is just kind of my thought process, and I'm not even going to get into what it would mean for the defense to have the crime scene there. But for the prosecution, if you're putting on a case against somebody and you want the jury to legitimately feel the emotion of what the truth of this crime is, you walk them through that crime scene. You take them to the front door. You let them smell the trees around the home. You let them get a feel of the area it's in. And then you walk them into that crime scene. You don't even have to let them be in there for long. And you just let them get the feel of it. And let me tell you, that really would bring the jury a little bit more into the fact of paying attention. They would definitely pay more attention because they would be in the realm of feeling where these people lost their lives. That's just my thought. But
yeah, we have another super chat. Because if this turns out into a cold case, would the interview room guy be back out in Idaho looking for more gloves?
I hope he comes back out.
It's very triggering for me to talk about that scenario. I just don't like that the podcaster was so close that he pointed out evidence to the police. I always thought that was the glove that they submitted into evidence, but I've heard that it's a different glove, but I have nothing to back that up. But
I've heard he found it like several days after the actual glove was found. But either way, I just want him to come back because I have some words for him.
Okay, we have a question from Chris McGraw. In terms of the house, I always wondered if the house was in compliance with local building codes. It was off campus, so the liability to the university is minimal, but still.
well, I don't feel like he could be in compliance considering there was no downward exit from the upstairs balcony to start with. So that would be a very potential fire hazard because you don't have an exit from the upstairs other than the inside stairwell, which if a fire's right there, you can't get out. And people say, oh, you just jump off the balcony. Well, no, you have to have an actual exit. It's mandatory. So I don't believe the addition was done correctly, and maybe they just didn't get people out there to inspect that. But I don't believe
might have some like weird laws on that because in my room, like I'm in like a half basement, but there's a 2x4 ladder going up to the window so I could get out.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right, but I just feel as though there would have to be something from that back balcony because even the police mentioned it in the body cam, and they clearly stated there was no exit there. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to be the building code.
I also wanted. Oh, I'm sorry, Robert.
Go ahead, Kiki. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say one quick thing. When we were talking about the Oculus, I wrote this down, which is so like all these things we're mentioning, the feel of the house, the sounds in the house. Even when we talk about the ladder, we don't know what they're going to tell about the exit and entry to the house, not having to physically see the ladder. But the biggest thing I think when we talk about using the Oculus to recreate the crime scene or something similar to it is how are they going to recreate the sounds to walk people through the PCA or what they think happened with Dylan's statement? Because we've heard so many different ways that that's been presented to us. Who's saying what? where she was when she said it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to walk them through the PCA, I think it's a bigger challenge now that people can't surmise, okay, was it BK saying this? Was it Kaylee saying this? Was it Ethan saying this? It's going to be something they can't really recreate with virtual reality, no matter what they do. I don't think that they could. Anyway, so I really think that it's gonna be hard to present the PCA using the Oculus. I just still, to myself, can't think of any reason other than, I can't think of any reason why they would tear down that house other than we know there's a possible tort lawsuit against the city and the university if anything was done wrong, and that two of the families reserve that right. And is this house the biggest piece of evidence in more than one case? You know, another possible lawsuit. So I can't think of any reason to tear down the house if your primary goal is justice. I don't know.
I mean,
go ahead, brother. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say I'm truly obviously in agreement with you, Kiki, but I also feel as though it'd be very important for the jury to be able to feel the compactness of that area of where Dylan's door is, the stairs, the hallway into Xana's room. That is not a big area, and for people to not fully understand, you know, how noise wasn't heard or what, they need to get the full gamut of what the feel of that house is and how actually shoulder to shoulder you would legitimately be. And I believe, you know, and this is just something I personally would really like to know, how the hell did the suspect walk right past Dylan when they could literally just high five each other in that close proximity and never even know she was there? And you need to be able to explain that to a jury. You really do. And without the home being there, they're never going to get that feel. They're going to feel like a normal open floor spaced home where you have more room to move around, and you actually don't.
I mean, just looking at the house when they tore it down, it looked like it was just built with plywood. I mean, there was no insulation, no nothing.
Yeah. I mean, definitely cheaply, the addition was definitely cheaply done, but I mean, the whole home itself didn't seem to be the most glamorous of well-built homes.
It's a very odd design.
You should see my house.
Okay, Heather sent me something in Discord.
Let's talk about the airplane. Let me mute myself.
It says by December 17th, 2022, lab analysts were aware of 2 additional male DNAs within the house where the deceased were located, and another unknown male DNA on a glove found outside the residence on November 20th, 2022. This date, the defense is unaware of what sort of testing, if any, was conducted on these samples other than the STR DNA profiles. Further, these 3 separate and distinct male DNA profiles were not identified through CODIS, leading to the conclusion that the profiles did not belong to Mr. Koberger. You're muted.
Which PCA are we looking at? Which state?
No, it wasn't the PCA. It was about the glove that was found, and the other 2 unknown male DNAs found in the house.
Okay. So we've determined it's definitely a different glove than the one that Chris McDonough found.
No, it was the one Chris McDonough found.
No way. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about Frank's hearings, but I know what 12 has taught me because we did like a 2 or 3 hour live stream on it. Now, again, I don't know all the facets of the Frank's hearing, but one of them is the credibility of the person who collected the piece of evidence and the chain of custody of that piece of evidence. And I mean, I don't know where it goes, but one of the problems you see is if a police officer is involved with something controversial, and you hear like on a TV show, like, oh, you're getting put on traffic duty or whatever, desk duty or something. There's a good reason for that. And that's because if they go onto a crime scene and collect evidence, they have to settle that with internal affairs first and make sure there was no wrongdoing, because if this is all my understanding too, and I'm not an expert. If there was some sort of issue with internal affairs, then it could affect future cases, because they rely on that credibility. So I'm just thinking back, I don't know if, I'm not going to go through Chris McDonough's history, but I just wonder, would that evidence, if he collected it or spotted it, would that break that chain of custody? Would that be a problem if there was something on Chris McDonough's record that was unsavory? I don't know, but that's what it immediately makes me think of as a Franks hearing. Maybe for that, I don't know if you can throw out a piece of evidence with a Franks hearing, or if it's just about throwing about the entire search warrant. But I mean, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. And I'm sorry if I'm way off base saying that. And I'm sorry, Chris McDonough.
What do you have to say about the AR?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask AR.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a powerful statement, obviously, that you just made. I mean, it's going to be very interesting in this case to see why they felt like certain things were important as evidentiary value, yet they didn't even want to look into trash cans in victims' rooms. They didn't want to look at the outside trash right outside the back door. They obviously tossed the black jacket hanging on the fire hydrant out front just onto the ground as if it meant nothing. So I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be very interesting to see what they deem as important evidence and what's not. I mean, I know for a fact. I mean, if they have this whole theory-based drive, like Twiz is tearing apart, where they go on this long tangent of a drive, why didn't they do any searches along that route to see if they could find a murder weapon or clothing or anything involved with the case? This case seems like one of the biggest eye-glaring issues with the case is the lack of want to even research evidence or figure out if it is evidence or not. But maybe I'm just not educated to know how they go through their processes. So
I thought Moto Max MX made a good comment too. I was reading through some of them, and he said they ruined the house to control the narrative. And I mean, just thinking, I mean, that is actually kind of what happened, no matter what way you look at it. And there was another one by Chris McGraw, who's been both have been making really great comments. Oh shoot, I'm having trouble because my mouse ran out. I didn't change the battery yet. Sorry. It's just every time I turn it off, it works. But no, I'm screwed.
I think it's not only narrative based, but money based as well, because you have Scott Green in an interview stating that he wants to build some low income student housing there, and we all know the prior houses history with sororities and fraternities. Even when Hunter Johnson was talking to the one, I think it was Blaker, the heavy set officer with the beard, and when Blaker made the comment, we know that this is an off-campus sorority house, and threatened him with the Greek council and everything else. The night that Hunter Johnson and that one kid answered the door, and none of the roommates were there, even though it looked like Bethany who answered the door that night. But knowing the University of Idaho, they're going to want to build another off-campus housing for a sorority or fraternity there.
They already had it on Google Maps that an apartment building was going up there.
Yeah, I have a gut feeling more houses are coming down in that area, to be honest with you. I think the neighboring houses are going to come down pretty in the relative future. I think they're going to change the whole dynamic of that neighborhood, and I don't think it's going to take long for them to do it. I could see a lot of changes coming in this upcoming summer break. We'll see. We'll see.
I did see two other points that I thought were really relevant to bring up, and Chris McGraw wrote both of them in here. So one of them is he says, and of course we have to verify this. I tried to Google it while we were talking, but I couldn't find anything. But he says they did make a list of how they allocated those emergency funds, but it's very vague. And then there was another good comment right after that I have right here. It says, in terms of the house, I always wondered if the house was in compliance with local building codes. It was off campus, so the liability to the university is minimal, but still. I don't know. It's a thought at least. We'll never know now.
Yeah, I think it's funny how the U of I tries to distance themselves from the house and from the murders by calling it their off campus. Every time we hear some news, oh, their off campus home. Oh, they were killed in their off campus home. It's the university tries to distance themselves from this tragedy. I mean, even with Pi Beta Pi, the first couple of days, they had this glowing memorial for Maddie and Xana. And then at Christmas time, please come put an angel on the tree for those that we have lost. Everything just seems to be like a distance from the actual unalivings, and from what I've heard is that the university and some of the fraternities and sororities were getting mad with the flyers up about information for the deaths of the kids.
Where did you hear the? Yeah.
It was on this one video I watched that they were upset because of all the flyers showing Xander, Maddie, Kaylee, and Ethan, and the number to call, and it was during rush week too. So
it was all just done to make people forget about it so they can continue making money at the university.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of financial situations going on with the U of I, especially with the purchase of the new university. They had a lot on the line. A lot of money was on the line.
It's not even just U of I, though. It's going to be like all schools. Like WSU, they didn't talk about this.
Yep.
When did they come out and talk about Brian after he was arrested? They were trying to squash the whole thing, too.
In that interview with Cassie that recently came out, that podcast on Spotify. So she was Brian Kohlberger's student. And even though a lot of people said she was detached herself from their opinion listening to it, she was basically saying, I knew it happened, but it just didn't quite hit home until I went to Thanksgiving break and that people were talking about it because the campus literally did have that attitude. They encouraged kids to go back to class almost immediately, and they basically said, this has nothing to do with us. This is none of our business. That's her words, not mine, but that is interesting.
Oh yeah.
But what else
do you guys ever think there's going to be a case that's going to be as spoken of as this one? And trust me, I get what people say. I mean, it's not spoken about across the country, but to me, just the way that this case is always, even here in Vegas, it's crazy. When I was in the hospital and I was joking around with the nurse that I couldn't even hear, I am half dead in a bed and I can't put my cell phone down. She's like, "Oh, you must be looking at the Idaho 4 case." I was watching a video on that earlier today. And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I mean, I can't even go to the hospital to get away from the Idaho 4 case in Vegas." I mean, I think it's spoken upon more than what people really think that it is. And it's like, wow, I remember the Jody Arias case. I remember the Chris Watts. I remember a lot of these big cases, and there was a lot of talk, but it just didn't seem like this one. I mean, and you've got big cases going on right now. You know, you got the serial killer back east. You got one in Austin. You got these things happening, but nobody's talking about them. You just, you know, it is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, see what's weird is you got that vandal alert that went out, and it went out at 4 o'clock. Asking everyone to shelter in place, and then
Just think about that though too. Like they knew about this at noon, and they put out the message at 4.
Yeah, well,
like even that was late.
Yeah, here's what's funny: the Washington State University did one at the same time. Moscow, this is from WSU. Moscow Police Department is conducting an investigation of a homicide that occurred adjacent to the University of Idaho campus. At this time, we are not aware of any threat to the WSU Pullman campus community.
Well, I mean, they obviously thought there was a threat. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made a statement like that.
Yeah.
Good way to cover up your feelings of a threat, right? Just say there's not one. Okay.
And how would you know? So it's like saying it definitively. I mean, is that how all of our institutions announce things to us? Like when we really could possibly endanger and they don't know, they just tell us we're safe. Is that really the way to handle things? I think being honest would have probably struck a better chord. And, you know,
yeah.
I have a friend.
No.
I have a friend who has a daughter that goes to a university, and I don't remember exactly what happened. I think somebody got stabbed, or they got threatened with a knife or something like that. But like the president of the university went behind like the board's back and had all of the 911 calls forwarded to the university's 911 center or something like that. Something just weird. But they will always do weird stuff like that because they don't want it to come out and cause panic, because then people will leave and they don't make money. They don't care about these kids. They care about the money.
No. I mean, sadly, a lot of our economics in life is coming down to the dollar. Even, you know, mainstream media. I remember as a kid sitting down watching mainstream media or CNN or whatever it was, because it was always so crazy to watch O.J. Simpson cruise down the highway and, you know, all this stuff, but it was nowhere near what it is today. You know, and it's all about the dollar. It's all about the dollar.
Yeah, see, just like, I mean, in what case does the prosecuting attorney go out the next day after the murder?
I couldn't understand you. Hopefully somebody else maybe heard that.
Yeah, I don't have
I said what? Yeah, I said in what murder case does the prosecuting attorney go out the next day to the crime scene?
Yeah, I don't know if that's normal or not.
I thought he was there the day of.
Yeah, like
I thought he was there
later.
the day. Yeah,
No,
I think he was walking the street.
Prosecuting attorney Bill Thompson on Monday, November 14th, outside the 1122 King Road house.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he wasn't there the day before, though.
Yeah, I think he was there the day of. They show pictures of him walking around looking at what investigators are looking at. I don't know.
Amazing.
Most times prosecutors aren't involved till the case is filed. But
yeah,
that's just what I know. Not saying that's not true. You know, this is Idaho. This is different shit.
Yeah, it might just be because it's like a small town. Maybe most of the time prosecutors are busy doing something.
Yeah, I mean,
this is going to be involved. So, I mean, he probably, if like you said, it's a small city, a small town, so they know who the players are going to be involved. Even with Ann Taylor, I mean, how many death penalty certified attorneys are there in that county? Not a lot, I think.
And I think with Ann Taylor going to work with the state, as a state public defender, does that get her out of the out from under the thumb of Bill Thompson to get stuff done?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, she's filed to do her own personal litigation now too. But one of the things that caught me off guard in this case that I never personally seen before ever in my lifetime of criminal history is a public defender at the crime scene before the client even gets extradited back from Pennsylvania to Idaho, because he hasn't even applied as of yet or been determined by the court to be eligible for representation through the state. You have to go through a hearing and a whole packet that's filed on your behalf to prove your financial means for them to even give you a lawyer. Yet she was already at the crime scene before he was in the state.
Heather Fitzgerald just made a very interesting statement. The Kootenai County prosecutor is Stanley Mortensen. Now, I'm wondering if he's any relation to Dylan Mortensen.
A lot of people have raised that question, but I don't believe so. But then again, you never know. I mean, you never know, but I don't think so. There are attorneys in her family, though.
Now, what do we know so far, guys, about Dylan Mortensen? Because, I mean, the last thing I heard was, a statement her father put out a while back on X that, she's a social recluse. She suffers from tremendous survivor's guilt, that she is seeking spiritual help in her community to get over the tremendous survivor's guilt that she has. She plays video games all day, and she smokes weed. But there was apparently there was a spotting of her at the Pi Beta Phi house. I don't know if it was at the Boise campus of Idaho State University or at the Moscow campus, but she was spotted at a event for Pi Beta Phi.
She's a big sister.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think her dad was just trying to protect her. Is my take on what was said. But that also shows that there was drugs in the house, so I guess that narrative goes away.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to put anybody under the bus, but she dated a known dealer, and she probably dabbled herself. I mean, it is what it is. And that doesn't mean that she would be the reasoning for things happening or whatnot. It could be, may not be. Who knows? But
yeah, I'm not trying to say that she's the reason that it happened. I'm just saying drugs were probably in the house.
I mean, I've always said there's more reasoning to this other than the guy that just kind of went AWOL thinking that he was, trying to date a girl and she turned him down. There's far more to this. But
we have a question from Motoman X. Is it possible that they had a suspect or had someone charged before Brian?
I think we would have known, but maybe.
I don't think so.
Look at the trouble they made showing us they had Brian. I don't think they would have missed an opportunity.
But also, I mean, what would you have him charge, him or her? I should say him or her / what would you have charged him with that wouldn't have come out to this point? And I know the defense was screaming, at the very beginning, they wanted to know who the informant was or if there was a co-defendant, and that's all fine and dandy. I just don't think we could be this far into this without knowing of another arrest.
Now, do we know if it's factual or non-factual that Brian asked when he was arrested in Pennsylvania, did you arrest anybody else? Do we know if that was a factual statement or was it a non-factual statement?
I don't think we'll ever know whether that's factual or non-factual.
Was it Severin Labar? Is that who made the quote? I can't remember who. I can't remember who initially made that, but it was LeBar.
I think it was his attorney there in Pennsylvania. Because apparently, according to his attorney, Brian made the statement when he was arrested. Did you arrest anybody else?
Right.
But I don't know if that's a factual statement or maybe the attorney misheard him, or if it was like just a rumor that was made up.
I just don't think we'll ever know. I don't, even if it didn't happen, I don't think it will ever be, rectified. It's something that's been said, happened, and I think we could all debate on it, whether we in our gut feel like it was said or wasn't said, but I don't think we'll have an actual confirmation either way, ever.
Unless Brian tells us. I wouldn't be surprised if he did say it, though.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, but then, in this case, I think everything wouldn't surprise me, but then everything could also be a surprise. So you just, the only person that's going to be able to deem what Brian Kohberger said or did or how he went about whatever he did is Brian Kohberger. And maybe one day he'll open up and speak about it, or he may just never speak about it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Very true, AR, Tina says. And Heather says that the attorney never actually said those words out of his mouth. I know the exact, I will find the clip because I know where I heard it. It was, I can't remember which interview it was, but it was one of the bigger ones. And I want to say it was with Court TV. But I think it might have been the one in October where the Gonzalez spoke for the first time, or they came out and they first started talking about social media. But I'll get the clip. That's interesting. And I do think it came, the initial reports were that LeBar said it, but we'll get a good answer for you. Thank you for bringing it up.
I believe though that the lawyer said he thinks he may have said that. I don't think he clearly stated that he heard him say it.
Heather says, just to clear that up, she says it's law and crime that that was.
And she said it is not the Cuomo one. This is a diagram of the house, on where people, where like Dylan is there on the second floor. Yeah, Dylan and Bethany are the ones in the gold, and then Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan are the ones in the blue, and then you have Murphy right there in Kaylee's room. Okay, Dylan's here, and you have Maddie. Now you have Maddie and Kaylee up here, and then over here you have Xana and Ethan. I don't know how Dylan could hear what she said would sound like Kaylee playing with Murphy when Murphy was over here and he was above the kitchen. She would have had to have heard Xana. No, she would have had to have heard Maddie and Kaylee being murdered directly above her. That's what she thought was the sound of Kaylee playing with Murphy. She would have had to have been hearing them being murdered directly above her. And then, of course, you have Bethany on the first floor, who probably didn't hear anything that night. But how can somebody not like Steve G said, there was one hell of a battle going on the second floor. How can you not hear? How can you, being Dylan, not hear one hell of a battle going on the second floor? And you open your door 3 times that night, and the third time you see the killer walking towards you. Everything with Dylan's statement just don't make no sense.
Well, it's also what MPD is telling us she said.
Yeah,
and they've lied about a lot, so.
I think at this point, the only way anything ever comes to tuition is if she steps in front of the jury in the courtroom and testifies at trial. That's going to be the first time that we hear from her own mouth. Whether that makes it make any more sense or doesn't, we'll have to wait and see. But I know, Robert, we've dissected it and dissected it and dissected it. And we've all got our opinions and our feelings, and now the only thing that could come from, this is actually hearing her in her own words explain why, how, when, and at that point, it's going to be up to her to utilize her own platform and her own words to either make it make sense, or I mean, I hate to say it for her sake, but it's going to not make sense, and she's going to get thrown even more to the wolves. But it's going to be up to her to rectify whatever comes of that, because we can talk about it all we want to, and it's never going to change the fact that we all have our opinions and we all just don't feel comfortable with the scenario. And she's the other one that can fix that. So we'll see. We'll see.
Now, is she even going to testify? That's the question. Because, I mean, yes, Bethany was in that house. Was in the house that night. She was on the first floor, and Bethany is already fighting coming back to Idaho, which I don't understand. I mean, if you're in that house and you're part of this case, why fight so hard to come back to Idaho? Why have your attorney make a statement that you want nothing to do with Idaho, you want nothing to do with the house, you want nothing to do with the case? But there was also reports that that she was scared to come back because she thought she might get arrested for obstruction of justice. Well, not calling 911 for 8 hours, isn't that obstruction of justice?
It is, but at this point, all of that's going to be null and void. We're past the preliminary hearing stage that could have happened, didn't happen. We're past the grand jury indictment. These ladies are going to have to testify. They have no choice about it. The defense will bring them out as hostile witnesses. They're going to be on the stand. They're going to be at the trial. They can't get out of it. I don't care what people say. They won't get out of it. They'll be there. And if they're not, they'll be sitting in a jail cell until they decide to testify. So they will be in front of everybody. I think my opinion is they'll close the court while they testify. I think that will be the protective measure that the prosecution's able to secure for them. But they're going to have to testify. They're going to be there. So neither one of them's getting out of it. If they are survivors and they are deemed to have been in the house when the crime happened, they'll be testifying. So,
I'd like to add a couple things to this too. I just had two statements I wanted to bring up. The first one about Dylan, and if the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, the way that was worded about her being arrested, coming back, I heard that it's standard terminology in those, saying that you're not going to be arrested if you come back to testify or to make a statement. And I could be wrong. Somebody can put it in the chat, but that's what people were telling me in my comment section when I brought it up before. And then the other thing I wanted to say is about Dylan, and I'm certainly not going to, speak words for her or try and explain anything that you might see on social media. But the one thing I will say is all of the actions that I started seeing, like the ones when, for instance, when Drip Drop started reporting on her and saying that she was out with her friends dancing, those were all big sister events. So for her sorority, she has to sponsor a little sister. And so like when you saw those like outfits and stuff like that, those were all activities she does, and they're to build the bond between the sorority. And so like, I'm not here trying to, I'm not going to put words in anyone's mouth or try, but I didn't take those pictures the same way. And I thought that it was probably a healing thing for her to get back.
I just wait until trial. She's going to have to speak. We're going to see if it makes sense or if it doesn't. At that time frame, I think we're going to have a better ability to judge based off of what we hear and what we see directly from her mouth of what's valuable to the case and what's not. Obviously, like I said, I don't like the fact that 8 hours were wasted with potential people losing their life that could. Nobody's going to convince me that somebody couldn't have possibly been still breathing or alive out of the people that were attacked, because I've seen people get stabbed 100 times that were still alive an hour later. So, to think that nobody was still possibly breathing affects me a little bit. But I'll just wait. I'll see what she has to say, and then I'll judge based off of her own words on how I feel. I think that's the best way to do it. So
It'll be interesting to know what Batanti said Bethany knew, and that was exculpatory,
that would be very interesting, because it's rare that you hear stuff like that come out, and people saying, hey, we think this person has exculpatory evidence, and yet, you haven't heard even a peep from them. So you're right. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting.
I think WSU Mom Kim might be a little bit further back in the live stream, but we were talking about why initially they were at the Banfield. And I think that she's saying there was a 911 call at 3 a.m. for an odd Sigma Chi. I don't know what that means, but 3 a.m. was right around the Banfield time when we were discussing it earlier. So I'm just curious.
She probably means OD.
Oh, yeah. Have you guys ever heard that? Because I don't know if they've released all the police reports from that night, or if you could still obtain them through a Freedom of Information Act. Well, they did, because they had Charlie Brown die that night.
I don't even think we're ever going to hear the 911 call from the inside the house the day of the day after the 9/11. I don't even think we're going to even hear the 911 call.
No.
Yeah, that's public information. I'm
think they have
surprised
to.
that at some point I would think so, but in Idaho, here we go again. I just think they're going to find a way around it, and we just may never get to hear it, because I would think bits and pieces of it would have at least already been released. But then again, here I sit and I stand corrected because it's not released. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Jim, just like why call your friends over to the house? Like this, the sorority and the sorority and the fraternity. Why call them over to the house? Well, before calling 911, and then you had the 911 call, which was made by a group of people dialing from either Bethany's phone or Dylan's phone, and they were passing it around in a circle. And where does this unconscious person BS come from?
Well, I think that's what's going to be the most interesting thing to hear is what was legitimately said that they feel as though needs to be so hidden outside of, we have a tragedy, some of my friends seem like they've been stabbed, or what could possibly have been said that has to be so withheld and so hidden? Were names utilized? I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting.
I vacillate between two things with the unconscious person. I vacillate between trusting what we read in Bloom's book, because he did bring out some of the standard procedures for that office, and it did sound like he had a first person interview, and that she should have clarified, because they could have sent a forensic unit with the initial ambulances, but she did put out the standard. They said they were understaffed and underpaid, and she just put out the standard unconscious person. So we don't know if that's true, but that's the explanation that we've heard from somebody who please have some inside information. The other thing I wonder though is, AR, we've both done videos on this, which is when Lucky went directly to that reporter, and I have screenshots of her text messages and different things, her actually admitting to the fact that there was a fifth victim that was brought to the hospital. And so when I hear the unconscious person, what always comes to my head is that one of the roommates stumbled on this, or somebody on the scene was traumatized by what they saw and fainted. And that was the unconscious person. But I vacillate between the unconscious person being those two things, and it could be both. I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive, but just wanted to-
After doing that piece with Lucky, the video with Lucky Work, where we discussed that, I actually was able to reach out to not only the reporter, but also who she worked for. And they absolutely confirmed exactly that. And they're not backing down from exactly what they said, that there was another victim and that, you know, there was more to the story. So that's very interesting, because obviously I believed what Lucky was saying because he had proof through the text and everything. But I reached out personally myself too and got very much the same and even more info, to be honest. So very interesting.
AR, do you think that possibly the FBI could get involved eventually with the case? Because I mean, it was the local highway patrol and the FBI that raided his parents' house in the early morning hours and arrested him. Do you think that possibly the FBI may get involved if they see the sheer incompetence of the Bill Thompson and the state of Idaho?
I mean, that's a good question. I believe the FBI is probably involved, even at this point. I think they always have been. Whether they're going to step up to the plate and actually be a part of anything is all going to be determined on their own investigative, deal that they did. If they deem that Brian Koberger is most likely not their prime suspect in what they were investigating, then they'll send their experts to the trial to testify to the data that they collected. But I don't believe that they'll pursue charges or anything of that nature. I feel as though, just from my personal experience, when the feds have a case against you, they take you down. I've been taken down by the feds quickly and without remorse, man. They come and they come hard. And they have more resources. They've got more capability to try, and they can do it in a much more private manner than any state can. So if they had a case against Brian Koberger, we would have already heard it.
I agree.
Wait, with Chris McGraw? Oh, are you just being funny?
No, with AR, we would have heard it.
We right now would be in a federal courtroom right now if the feds had charges against Brian Koberger. Anything. Even if it was a terrorist, he stole chemicals to build a bomb.
So you're saying that's not true?
It's absolutely not true, because he'd be in a federal indictment already. That's a crime. That's a federal crime. They take that very seriously, especially on a college university campus. They take you down hardcore, and they don't joke. They don't play. They indict you, they charge you, and they prosecute you, and you go sit in a federal penitentiary. They don't have that against Brian Koberger. They don't have charges of him breaking and entering and trying to get chemical. None of that. No, they would have had charges. We don't even need to discuss it. It's not true. It's not true. Anyway, sorry. That was my 2 cents.
I can sleep well knowing I'm not going to get blown up tonight. Thank you so much. You're the first person that's told me that. I can't believe people even believe this stuff.
I mean, just like we've all heard that the narrative about a cartel hit on the house. Now we all here on this panel know that if it was a cartel hit, cartels don't use knives to kill you. They use guns and they blow the crap out of your house. So I don't believe it was a cartel hit.
I've never worked with the cartel or known the cartel. I mean, I've been housed with them in the penitentiary, and they're definitely no joke. But I don't know how they conduct their their business because I'm not a part of it. Never have been. So
I've read and heard stories about them hacking people to pieces with like machetes and stuff, but
well, I've seen them take each other apart in a penitentiary with literally a razor blade. So people talk about guns. If there's many of ways of handling business, as I call it. So I don't know, but makes for good stories, makes for good money making to tell those. I don't know how to explain it outside of that.
I hear Twiz
I wind
typing.
up. Yeah, I know you're going 100 miles an hour, Twiz. I can hardly even talk into a headset, and I haven't even looked at the comments in here. I probably should be doing that, but
that's slow typing. What are you guys talking about?
shit, who knows what we're talking about?
Should hear me go full speed.
All right, hey, we've been live for almost 3 hours. Let's wrap this live up and talk behind the scenes. Kiki, you got anything going on this week, or AR, you as well?
Jen and I. Go ahead.
I'm like really off tonight. I'm sorry I keep talking over you, AR, and it's just you. So I feel bad. My apologies for.
No, do it. Do it more. Do it more.
I'm gonna get back into a regular schedule just because this is streaming to my channel. I was doing Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m., but I'm trying to do them later at night. So you'll have to stay tuned about Monday. I don't know if I'm going to be doing Monday, but I definitely have a members live on Tuesday at 10. And I'm going to open the panel up, but I have so much to share with you guys. And I put together some great videos I'm going to be releasing tomorrow. So, and I just want to say I miss all my Discord friends. So I hope you're all doing well. And that's about it. I'm happy you invited me on panel tonight. It's been really fascinating conversation with the three of you. So thank you, Robert, for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Jennifer, not the crazy one, created a group called Kikis Orphans.
I just told that today. I felt so special when Christy told me that. Thank you, guys. You're my
Not the crazy one. Psycho Jen.
I guess my wife, Jennifer, not the Psycho Jen, unless you're around her enough, but she says Monday and Tuesday she wants me to go live. I guess one of the days I'll be talking true crime, and then the other day she wants me to get a little more personable and have kind of a discussion of when I lost a loved one, a daughter that I adopted back in my younger years when I was, a part of the prison affiliation, and I adopted a young little girl from one of the affiliation females that was a drug addict, and I raised her as my own, and Jen was just getting to know her when she passed at the age of 11, and she feels as though it should be the first time that I ever bring out and really kind of discuss it, because there's been people that have come at me in regards to I've never lost a child, or I don't understand what death comes from a loved one. So we're gonna do a live in regards to my brother's life being taken, and then also the young lady I was raising as a daughter of my own. So a little more personal side of things. So if you guys want to tune in, it would probably be the evening time in Tuesday, my time. So I'll definitely post some sort of thumbnail or link, but it's gonna be the first time I actually opened up into some that in depth and that deep. So
I'm so sorry for your loss, AR.
I appreciate it. It's gonna be the first time. I'm telling you, it's gonna be probably a little emotional. I've never talked about it. I know in my writings, as many of you guys know, I'm working on a book, but I kind of go in depth into the past like that with the young lady, but also in how Jen and I became into a relationship and broke all the odds within the penitentiary of an actual interracial relationship after I left, my affiliation that was very political and very racially based. I was able to get out of that and So it'll be kind of a cool live. It's going to be a little more personable than I think people have seen me get, and I know many people are always kind of interested in hearing a little more of the background and the actual personal story that's led me to come into the platform and grow and change my life. And so I'll be sharing some of that with you guys.
It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it should be. I hope I have a small crowd.
It's not going to be small.
It'll be huge.
I don't get huge crowds, but I'm appreciative of every crowd I do get. So
You get more likes on your post than any other creator per kappa. You really do.
I do.
I think it'll be fun coming up shortly when all the stuff starts coming out in court about how it's at least pretty likely Brian didn't do it, because all these people that are watching the Guilters channel, they're gonna have some questions.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about this behind the scene, guys. Stick around. Like always, guys, and thank you to my amazing panel tonight. Kiki, my brother AR, and Twiz. There can only be one Twiz. Everyone have a good night, and this is TCC out.